Okay, we will continue moving forward with the chapter dealing on fish. And with that, as you can see, the first one, what I want you to know is when you see the class Maxini or Myaxini, however you want to pronounce that, what is the most important characteristic of that about these types of fish? I wouldn't say it's most important, but it's what should stand out. We called the hagfish, for instance, the knot fish, because these animals lack a no, no. Well, they do lack an exoskeleton because they have an endoskeleton. A what? Nope. 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 Okay. Say that again. Yeah, they lack a jaw. These are the jawless fish. Okay. So whether it's lampreys, okay, or that of the hagfish, we said they will tie themselves in a knot because structurally, what do these animals look like? Say, um, say that again. Yeah, I suppose you could say they look like worms, but a little bigger. And the reason that's important is because if these animals, which are fish, which have a backbone, which are vertebrates, but lack a jaw, and if they look like a worm, it's hard for them to propel forward because they don't have a what if they look like worms? Yeah, they don't have a tail. That's correct. So that's why we call them the knot fish, because they will actually tie themselves into a knot to provide that extra leverage to take a piece of flesh out. Now, there's got to be a reason that nature selected to have these animals. And why would that be? What's their diet? If they're scavengers, which they are, it means they will eat what? That's correct. All right. So, we move on to probably what you would consider the most oh, it's just interesting. This is kind of like a domino effect. And let's go ahead and get this wrapped up quickly. But if you had to study fish, and yet we continue. Okay? If you had to actually study fish, it's one of them things to where some of you maybe do ice fishing or during the summer pull your walleye, whatever it is, out of the river, lakes, whatever. You're probably not going to study them. Okay? Maybe you do. How many of you think you're really good at cleaning them? And to me, probably the best thing that you're going to want to start with is probably a sharp knife, right? Okay. And I would agree. You may think it sounds counterintuitive, but a dull knife is actually more dangerous than a sharp knife. Would you agree? Okay. And with that, you're not going to study these walleye. But if you had to look at something out of a book, these would probably be the most interesting to study. That's why the Discovery Channel devotes an entire week to them. These guys, of course, we're talking about animals or fish composed totally of cartilage. So yes, that of the sharks. Not that we're the best drawers, which I shouldn't say, I'm not going to throw you into that category. I'm talking about myself. In the upper right-hand corner, if you had to look at those two types of tail structures, which one's a bony fish, which one is a shark, do you think? Bottom is a shark, and the top is, for the most part, a bony fish's tail. He said, I struggle at that because I'm just not very good at drawing, but what we see happening here, okay, that's true. No one's going to doubt that. Very, very strong jaw. Now, the swimming musculature would be located where? In any fish that's going to drive its what? Oh, I mean this. But is this how they swim, though? Yeah. Only marine mammals do this. Yeah. That's why I said, I want to switch this, see if we're paying attention. And you didn't let me down. Okay. So one of the things to keep in mind is, for instance, these powerful jaws. And notice about their teeth. They're obviously shaped like sickles in the head of bean head of a combine. Okay? So those sickles, for the most part, would have what shape? Right. So what we see happening here is those sharp teeth, they're not going to do you much good if you don't have something like this to drive them. And for instance, if you're storing or rebuilding a vehicle or a hot rod, just have it repainted, you've got everything, you're a chrome person, you got the heads, the manifolds, the carburetor, so we're talking about anything probably before the year 2000. Maybe everything went to fuel injection as opposed to I'm just guessing, I really don't know. But, so you have everything look just the way you want it to, and someone says, wow, that is such a great vehicle. But there's no transmission in it yet, so you can't move. So no matter how well you got that vehicle looking, it doesn't do any good without a transmission. I think you would agree with that. So the logic we're trying to say, it doesn't matter what those teeth are going to look like. If you don't have that powerful jaw in there, it's not going to do it much good anyway. Okay, so as we continue to move forward, what does this mean right here, whether you call it a niche or a niche? And I've heard it pronounced both ways. So what does that mean in your opinion? No, it refers to any individual species, its living quarters, or its habitat where it is the most successful. Okay? So these animals are so successful, really, no matter where they go, because of these right here, and of course that, and then just their regular predaceous habits. Now, the most common type is, you would agree, is probably going to be the one the most fun to study, would be that of the white or the great white shark. So its predaceous habits, how's it going to go after its prey? Probably the fur seal or any type of animal. It's going to go through what we call a breach. When that shark breaches, anyone know what that means? Yeah, it's shooting right out of the water with the seal in its mouth and probably biting down, maybe even splitting it right in half. Okay? Sometimes a lot of these animals don't want to attack where they can actually be injured themselves. So obviously you see they attack, they bite, just let it bleed to death, and then go back and finish them off. So that's a predaceous habit. I think everyone would agree. And when we talk about well-developed sense organs, what are we talking about? Hearing, seeing, both of those, that's the hearing part, would be the vibrations. And their sight might not be that great, so unfortunately, what happens if someone loses their sight? What happens to their other senses? Yeah, they get heightened. That's exactly right. So they can't see very well, but they can certainly hear, and of course they can smell then as well. Can they locate prey items without seeing, hearing, or smell? Yes. How's that possible, do you think? With how does a muscle know it needs to be contracted? It needs to have what sent to it. Why do you individuals drink Gatorade with electrolytes? That's the key. What is an electrolyte? Does anyone know? What are these guys right here? Sodium and potassium. So you drink those electrolytes because if you're running low on them, that's when you start to cramp. Well, not only because of losing water, but you drink those electrolytes to replenish those. And when you do that, that's what stimulates your muscles. So these animals will pick up on any type of animal that's moving by the electrical charge that it gives off. And that's always going to be a unique advantage to any type of predator. And that's what makes these animals so successful. And that's why they've probably been around for the better part of 350 million years. I would say that's probably a pretty neat structural advantage that allows them to stay around. Okay. So they're constantly on the move because they're heavier than water. Okay? For those of you who may watch Shark Week, if they're going to bring an animal on a boat, okay, they may put them on a platform. And in order to do that, obviously for the safety of the crew, you're going to try to immobilize that shark. But what happens is they can essentially drown in water. Okay? And there again, if I was sitting in your shoes, or I wouldn't say some of your shoes because you're probably wearing 16s or sitting on there. 13s, 14s. Because I got maybe size 11s. Oh, okay. So with that, if I was sitting on that side of the desk looking forward, I would probably say that's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. How can a fish drown? Exactly. So what they would do is they will take some form of a hose with water shooting through it, put it in its mouth, just like what you had said, so that water is flowing over the gills. Because if it doesn't, it can't breathe. And that's one of the reasons. There's two reasons they need to keep moving. This is one, because they will start to sink and they can't breathe if they're not moving forward. Kind of strange to think of it that way, but that is the case. Now that's not a problem for bony fish. So for some of you, I can't picture being anybody in here. You're out on a boat. Maybe your parents have a depth finder. Yes, no. So that you're looking down for what? Trout, wall. I have no idea what you need a depth finder for. Or is that just to avoid shallows with your boat? Why have a depth finder? I'm asking because I don't know. Okay. Okay. So, fair enough. But with that, if it's walleye, can they just hang out in one spot and not move? Yes. If you have pet fish or whatever, Yeah, they can just hang out in one spot. They can regulate the gas in their gas gland and then just open up their mouth. Water flows in and causes that to flow over their gills in that manner. Okay? Now, you might be thinking, well, why can't sharks do the same thing? Well, we'd already established that. If they're not moving, down they go. So to help counteract that, one of the things that we had said last week, when we cut those sharks open, there's two things that are going to stand out in your mind. One, the size of that animal's liver. Two, how greasy it is. Because it's a compound, I think it's one of your vocab terms, called squalene. And what that squalene is a type of greasy oil that helps these animals maintain their buoyancy. Okay? Because grease, oil, lipids, they're all going to float in water. So that helps them maintain that natural buoyancy. Okay? Now, what's one of the most predominant features besides the tail, besides the dorsal fin of a shark? Why does the majority of sharks look the way they do in the anterior region? Okay, but bony fish have pectoral fins too. But they might be webbed, unlike that of the sharks. But what is significant about this area? The snout. Why? Exactly right. Why does it come to a point? Right, because we can move through the water a lot more efficiently. So there's no reason that you would know this. I don't know if it's called the mako or blue. I think it's just called the mako, not blue tip mako or anything to that effect. That type of an animal that can probably swim about 30 miles an hour. That's pretty astonishing, because I'm sure at any point when you individuals were young, who hasn't taken their arm and swung it across, you're under the water, but you're creating a wave. In other words, that water is creating quite a resistance. So for that animal to be able to swim that fast, going through that medium, is actually pretty astonishing. So that's why these animals look the way they do. So these fins act as wings. So what's that going to do? Allow it to create what? When we think of wings, we think of planes. Those planes, the wings create what for that plane? Yeah, create lift. Same for these. That's why they look the way they do. And then finally, why have that dorsal fin on there? It's going to keep it from doing what? Spinning or tumbling or rolling over. It's more so of a stabilization structure. Okay, so we will continue with that part tomorrow. There's one of the things we talked about last week. There's a shark photographer that I want to show. It's called. He recreates these in a computer, with a computer digitally. It's called a virtuarium. To look at different types of sharks throughout the geological time. And that's what I was looking for earlier. I could not find. So we'll try to track that down. We see movement of sharks. We'll continue talking about predation tomorrow. We'll get to the rays. Probably vocab quiz sometime. Maybe about the 16th. That would be a week from this Thursday. Somewhere around in that area. And then we'll get some papers handed out next week. And we also have to, again, cut those sharks open. We'll get to that at a later time. Okay. Catch up to you next time.